I want to tell you about the day I learned what fear really means. Not the shallow kind you feel before an exam or a sparring match. I mean the deep kind. The kind that rewires how you see the entire galaxy. My name is Kale Vorath. I am Drathani. And this is the story of how a small human girl taught me the most important lesson of my life, without ever raising a hand against me. It started on intake day at the Galactic Union Military Academy, Station Apex 7. If you have never heard of it, just know this. It is the most respected military institution in the known galaxy. Only the strongest species even qualify for admission. You need a verified combat aptitude index above a certain threshold just to submit an application. Drathani like me, with our natural armor plating and regenerative scales, we belong here. Cathosi with their reinforced exoskeletons, they belong here. Palaxians with their massive frames and centuries of warrior tradition, they belong here. Everyone else is just filling a quota. At least, that is what I believed at the time. I was leaning against the entrance colonnade with my two closest friends, Suwar, a Varelian with 4 arms and a permanent sneer, and Bren, a Cathosi whose mandibles clicked whenever he found something amusing. We were second years by then, which meant we had survived the brutal first year and earned the right to look down on everyone who had not. That is how we saw it anyway. We stood at the main gate every intake day and watched the new cadets shuffle through, rating them, mocking the ones who looked too small or too soft. It was tradition. Someone had done it to us, and now it was our turn. The rumor that morning was that a human had been admitted into the incoming class. I remember Suwar laughing about it. None of us knew much about humans. They were a younger species, barely 40 standard years into their relationship with the Union. Small galactic footprint. No major colonies outside their home system. I pictured something weak and forgettable. The kind of species that gets a courtesy seat at Union assemblies but never actually speaks. Then I saw her. She came through the outer courtyard in a stream of other first years, but she stood out immediately because of how small she was. She barely reached the chest height of the average cadet around her. She had no visible armor, no claws, no crest, no venom sacs, nothing that said predator. She was carrying a single regulation duffel bag over one shoulder, wearing standard-issue gray fatigues that looked slightly too large for her frame. Her hair was dark, pulled back tight against her head. Her skin was smooth and bare. She looked, and I am not proud to say this now, like prey. Bren clicked his mandibles. Suwar flexed 2 of his forearms and grinned. I pushed myself off the wall and made a decision. I was going to welcome her the way I had been welcomed. I was going to teach her where she stood in the order of things. I walked directly into her path as she approached the inner gate checkpoint. I planted myself in the center of the gap, crossed my arms over my chest, and used every bit of my height advantage. I was almost twice her size. My scales caught the overhead light, and I knew I looked exactly as intimidating as I intended to look. She stopped in front of me. She did not try to go around. She just stopped and looked up. I spoke loud enough that every cadet within 30 meters could hear me. I asked her if she was lost. I asked if she had wandered in from the civilian quarter by mistake. I said something about how some species really should not send their young out without a protective escort. A few nearby cadets chuckled. Suwar and Bren were right behind me, backing me up with their presence. It felt good. It felt powerful. The human girl did not flinch. She did not step backward. She did not lower her eyes or hunch her shoulders the way most first years do when a second year gets in their face. She just looked at me with those strange round eyes, steady and calm, and said 3 words. "You're in my way." That threw me off for half a second. First years do not talk back. Not to second years, and certainly not to a Drathani with full-scale crest displayed. But I recovered quickly and doubled down. I told her that the academy was not a place for soft species. I made a comment about humans being barely past their industrial age. I asked what she could possibly contribute to an institution built on strength and combat excellence. Suwar laughed. Bren clicked his mandibles rapidly, which is the Cathosi version of applause. She did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She tilted her head to one side, just slightly, the way you might study an insect on a leaf, and she looked at me with an expression I did not understand at the time. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was something closer to patience. Then she said, very quietly, "You really don't know, do you?" Before I could respond, a voice cut across the courtyard like a plasma, round through silence. I knew that voice. Every cadet at the academy knew that voice. It belonged to Senior Instructor Dalvin, a Palaxian veteran who stood 8 feet tall, carried the scars of 3 major wars on his gray skin, and had a reputation for making fourth-year cadets cry with a single look. He was the most feared instructor at the academy. He answered to almost no one. He was striding toward us at speed, and my first instinct was satisfaction. I assumed he was coming to deal with the human, to correct some protocol violation, or simply wave her along so she would stop blocking the flow of cadets. I was wrong. Instructor Dalvin walked directly past the human girl without a glance, stopped in front of me, and I saw something on his face that I had never seen before on a Palaxian. It was fear. Then he turned away from me. He turned to face the human girl, and he performed a full formal Palaxian apology bow. His massive frame bent forward, his arms spread wide, palms open and turned upward. I had only ever seen that gesture in historical recordings. It is reserved for moments when a Palaxian has caused offense to a superior of significant rank or power. It is not something instructors do for first-year cadets. It is not something Palaxian war veterans do for anyone short of a fleet admiral. He apologized to her. He called her by a rank designation I did not recognize. He told her that the behavior of his cadets did not reflect the values of the academy, and assured her it would not happen again. His tone was careful, measured, and almost gentle. I had once watched this same instructor make a Drathani fourth-year run laps until he collapsed. And now he was speaking to this tiny human girl as if she were made of something precious and terrifying at the same time. The girl nodded once. Just a small, polite nod. She said thank you. Then she walked through the gate without looking back at any of us. Sewer and Bren had gone completely silent. I could feel my own heartbeat in my throat. Instructor Dalvin turned to face the 3 of us, and the fear on his face had been replaced by cold fury. "My office," he said. "Now." We followed him in silence. In his office, Dalvin sealed the door and activated a holo display. He pulled up files that were flagged with security classifications I had never seen before. Files that second-year cadets were absolutely not supposed to access. He told us to sit down and keep our mouths shut. Then he told us what humans actually are. He started with biology. Humans come from a planet called Earth, and Earth is what the Union classifies as a Category 12 death world. I did not even know the scale went that high. Their planet has extreme gravity shifts, constant tectonic instability, active volcanic systems, and predators in every single biome. The atmosphere carries bacteria and microorganisms that would shut down a Drathani immune system in hours. Humans do not just survive there, they thrive. They became the dominant species on that planet, not through armor or venom or size, but through 2 things that are far more dangerous: endurance and intelligence. Humans are persistence predators. On their home world, they used to hunt by simply following an animal until it collapsed from exhaustion. They can keep moving longer than almost any species in the Union registry. They recover from injuries that would be fatal to my kind. They heal broken bones. Their bodies produce chemical compounds under stress that temporarily push them beyond their normal physical limits. And their minds never stop working, never stop analyzing, never stop adapting. Then Dalvin told us about their history with the Union. 40 standard years ago, humans made first contact. Within 5 years, they had studied and reverse-engineered the fundamental principles behind Union, faster than light travel, something that took my species 3 centuries. Within 10 years, they had built their own fleet. Within 20 years, they had fought a border conflict with the Rethkai Dominion, a species that had terrorized 3 sectors of the galaxy for as long as anyone could remember. And the humans had won, not by a narrow margin, decisively. The Rethkai, who had never backed down from anyone, surrendered and requested peace negotiations for the first time in their civilization's recorded history. I felt cold. My scales had tightened against my skin, which is what happens to a Drathani when deep survival instincts activate. Then Dalvin pulled up one more file. The girl's file. Her name was Marin Cole. She had scored in the top 0.01% on the Union Combat Aptitude Index. Her score was higher than any Drathani candidate in 12 years. She had not gotten into the academy through some diplomatic loophole or charity program. She had been personally recruited by the Union Security Council. They had asked her to come. Dalvin closed the file and looked at me for a long time. "That girl," he said. Could have put you on the floor before you finished crossing your arms. She chose not to. That restraint is exactly the reason humans are more dangerous than you will ever understand. We were assigned punitive training rotations for the rest of the term. Extra drills, extra shifts, extra everything. But honestly, the punishment barely registered, because the real consequence was what I saw over the following weeks. I watched Maren Cole move through the academy like water through stone. In endurance trials, she outlasted species twice her size. She was not the fastest, she was not the strongest, but she simply never stopped. Others would push hard, burn out, and collapse. She would maintain a steady pace and keep going long after everyone else had given up. In combat simulations, she did not overpower her opponents. She read them. She would shift her approach 3 or 4 times in a single bout, finding weaknesses her opponents did not even know they had. Within a few weeks, cadets started asking not to be paired against her. In tactical exercises, she thought in ways that left the instructors speechless. She used misdirection, creative deception, and psychological strategy. She won a major wargame simulation by convincing a key member of the opposing team to switch sides, not through threats or intimidation, but through conversation. Through persuasion. No cadet from any species had ever tried that in the history of the exercise. And here is the part that unsettled me the most. She was kind. She helped struggling cadets with their coursework. She shared her rations with a homesick Varelian first year. She laughed easily and smiled often. She read old human literature on a battered datapad during meal breaks. She was warm and open and approachable. That combination, the gentleness and the lethality living side by side inside the same person, that was what made humans terrifying. Not because they were cruel, because they could choose not to be. Near the end of the term, I finally worked up the courage to approach her. I found her alone in the mess hall, reading her datapad. I stood across from her and delivered a formal Drathani apology, the kind reserved for serious offenses between warriors. I had rehearsed it for days. She listened to about half of it before she held up a hand and stopped me. "I know what you were doing at the gate," she said. Her voice was calm and matter-of-fact. "Every military academy in the galaxy probably has someone like you. We have them on Earth too." I asked her if she had been angry at me. She thought about it for a moment. "For about 2 seconds," she said. "Then I realized you just didn't know. Most species don't, until they do." I asked her what humans on Earth do when someone tries to bully them at their academies. She smiled. It was a small smile, friendly on the surface, but something shifted behind her eyes, something old and patient, and absolutely certain of its own power. Every instinct in my body told me to look away, and I could not explain why. "On Earth," she said, "we usually let them figure it out the hard way." She paused and held my gaze for one more second. "Consider yourself lucky I was in a good mood that day." She picked up her tray and walked away. I sat there for a very long time. That was 2 years ago. I am a 4th year now. Maren Cole has been transferred to a special operations track that I did not even know existed until her name disappeared from the regular roster. I hear things sometimes. Whispers about missions in contested space, about situations that were impossible until a human got involved. I used to think strength was about size, about scales and claws and the sharpness of your teeth. I used to think that the species at the top of the food chain were the ones who looked the most dangerous. I was wrong. Humans do not warn you. They do not posture or roar or display their natural weapons, because they do not have any. They just look at you with those flat, forward-facing predator eyes, calm and steady, and they decide whether or not you are worth the effort. The most dangerous thing about a human is not what they can do to you. It is that by the time you understand what they truly are, they have already chosen to let you walk away. I never stood in anyone's way again.